Today, I'm going to be showing you how you can take your tables from looking like this to looking like this. And this is all thanks to the Plottable package, which is in Python, which we can use to create these really beautiful and unique looking tables and visualizations. If you've ever tried to make a table in Python with Matplotlib, you know that it is very difficult and that it can be very overwhelming trying to convert your data frame or any data that you have just into a really nice looking table. So the Plottable package is actually really cool because it allows us to take Matplotlib as its base, and then we can start creating a lot of really cool tables. So in the documentation, it gives a couple of really basic examples. For example, they have this Women's World Cup example that they use. So they're just taking this piece of data and they're turning it into this, which, I mean, it has flags, it has different colors based on the level of the number or the ranking. It has groupings, and this package is going to allow us to create these tables in a way that is easier to one, code, and as well two, to digest as a viewer. Let's jump over into kind of the pre-setup. So you need to open up a terminal. So once you get to your terminal, we just need to make sure we have a couple of packages installed. The first one that we're going to use is called Pandas. So if you haven't used Pandas before, it's just a data wrangling package. So just say pip install pandas. And then you want to make sure that you're using versions 1.5.2. So you can say is equal to 1.5.2, just like that. And it'll download it. If you already have it, it'll say, okay, it's uninstalling and reinstalling as the correct version. The next package that we actually need to install is lxml. So we'll say pip install lxml. And then as well, we're going to do matplotlib. That is basically the base of the Plottable package. And then finally, we'll say Plottable. So you can install all three packages at once if you just put a space in between the package names. So run that, and I already have everything installed. So it's looking good for me. So let's open up a Jupyter notebook. So just say Jupyter notebook. Okay, so once we have our Jupyter notebook, just come up here, open up a new Python file. And so the process of what we need to do is, one, we need to source our table. So we need to web scrape our data. We'll do that using pandas. It's super easy to scrape the table. And then as well, we are just going to define a couple of colors that we're going to need to kind of make the table look good. So the table we're going to be scraping today is from fbref.com. This is Football Reference. It has a ton of tables on it. So let's head over to the competitions and we can go to La Liga. So if we go to competitions La Liga, this has all of the different tables regarding stats, regarding different things that are going on about the season. We want to get just the table standings. So it has how many matches have been played, wins, draws, losses, just all the basic stats about how a team. So what we'll do is we are going to grab this table using pandas, and then we are going to turn it into our own unique table. So let's come back over to our Jupyter notebook, and then we can say import pandas. So we need to import the pandas package as PD, and we're just going to do all of our imports first. And then we'll say import matplotlib. And then as well, we're going to do matplotlib.pyplot. So we'll say import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT. So this is going to allow us to kind of create our graph. And then we'll say from Plottable. So Plottable is the package that we're going to be using to create these tables. So we'll say from Plottable, import column definition. So it has a capital C, a capital D, and put a comma, and we'll do table as well. And then we'll say from plottable.cmap, import normed cmap. And then last one, from plottable.plots, import image. So these are the things that are going to allow us to kind of change how the table looks and add different colorization, add images, do different things to the table to help us create that visually appealing table. So go ahead and run that. Quick tip in Jupyter Notebooks, if you just hit shift return or shift enter, it will run the cell that you're currently on. I'm just going to create a bunch of cells. So now let's go get our data. So what we're going to do is we're going to say df equals pd, so pandas.read_html. And then in parentheses, in a string, we want to just grab the La Liga stats table. So come back here and just plug that in. The thing with using pd.readHTML, if we left it like this, it would return every table that is on that page. So we want to tell it just to get the one table that we're looking for. So put a comma and we're going to say attrs equals, and then in these little squiggly brackets, we're going to go put a CSS selector, or basically we're going to go tell it what part of the CSS and HTML code on this page to extract this table from. So if you right click and then you come down, sorry, my face is in the way, right click and then come down here and hit inspect. This opens up the Google developer tools. And so we can use this elements stuff right here. This is all of the CSS and HTML that is loading and rendering this page. So come click on this little box with the arrow, and this will allow you to select something on the page, and it will open up over here where that code is. So click on the box and then come and let's click on this table right here. Okay, so we can come over and we can look. So this is the table right here, and as you can see, it's highlighted blue, and this is the HTML and CSS code that we are going to use to extract just this table uniquely. So you want to find something in here that when you run the code, it's only going to get that table. It's not going to get anything different than what you're looking for. And usually this can be done with either this class attribute or the ID attribute. So the class one looks kind of generic. It just says like stats table, sortable. But the ID, that one looks pretty unique because it's ID equals, and then it's results 2023, 2024. And this is the only results table on the page, right? The other ones are just standard stats. This one is goalkeeping. I mean, if we come and we click on this one right here, so this ID is stats squad keeper 4, right? So let's go back up to here. Let's go back to this table. And then let's just copy this ID equals results right here. So click into it. You can double click on it and it will highlight it. Might need a triple click. Then come back here, and basically what we're going to do is we are just going to recreate that ID, that CSS selector inside of our attributes dictionary right here. So since we're looking for an ID, we'll say ID in parentheses, and then a colon. We're going to paste this results equals 2023, 2024 overall. So this is basically using CSS selectors. We're using this attributes to say, okay, the thing we're looking for, the table we're looking for, has an ID attribute of results equal to results 2023, 2024. And another thing to note is that read HTML returns a list of data frames, and since we only want it to return one, we'll do brackets at the end in 0 like that. So we can run that. Okay, let's look at what our data frame looks like. So if we say df.head, okay, so we now have that table. Now, since we have gotten the table, what we want to do is we want to just do a little bit of data cleaning so that we can start creating our table and creating our visualization. The first thing we want to do, as you can notice, is there is no image when we get this data frame, right? We do not get any sort of image. So we want to add a path to where we have stored the images just on our computer. I will be uploading all of the images that I'm using for this table. It's all of the La Liga images, and that will just be in the same repository on GitHub. I'll leave a link in the description so you can download those and have them as well, okay? So we're going to create a new column, and we're going to call it badge. So we'll say df badge equals. So what we'll do is we'll go down this squad column, and we'll create a file path for every squad that is on our table, okay? So to do this, we're going to say df squad dot apply. So the dot apply, when we do this, it's basically it's going to go down row by row on the squad column, like we mentioned, and it's going to apply some sort of function, some sort of calculation. In this case, we're going to be doing a string transformation. And we're going to be using, they're called lambda functions, and it's essentially just a temporary function. And it's basically when you just want to run some sort of temporary code, because for the dot apply, we do need to pass in a function. And so we use lambda functions to just write a temporary function, a temporary calculation, so that we don't have to actually store that function in memory. It's a little bit of a trick that you can use in pandas, but it comes out to be very helpful for when we're needing to apply a row by row calculation. So to do this, just say lambda x and then colon, and then here you need to put in your file path of where those logos are stored. So for me, sorry, I have another screen just with like a couple of code snippets so that I can do stuff faster. So I have them stored, this is the full path. And then here, we're actually, make sure you do an F string because we're going to be applying F string insertion. In curly braces, you're going to say x.lower. So this is going to make it so each of these squad names is lower. And then what we need to do is we need to start replacing a couple of these weird letters. So for example, Atletico Madrid has a E. We're going to replace these letters with just their English versions of the letter. To do this, we'll just say x.lower.replace and then just start plugging those in. So on Mac, you can just hold down the key and then select whatever it is. So we want to replace number 2 with just a lowercase e. Then we can start to string these together. So then just do a dot replace again. And then on A, sorry, I'll move this. On A, we want to replace number 2 with just English A. And then again, dot replace I. So we want to replace number 3 with just a lowercase I. And then to finish this off, after we've added this bit of string in here, we want to say underscore logo dot png, the quotation at the end. So this is kind of hard to read, but that's what it looks like all in all. You can pause the video. So you basically just need to make sure these file paths are correct with the file that you have stored. So I have named them the team name underscore logo.png. That basically is how you can get the file path for all of those teams. Okay, let's run that. And now we can look at what df badge looks like. df badge, let's look at 0. So that is what df badge looks like. It's just a file path to the logo. And we're going to have to utilize this later when we are going to load in the logos in the Plottable package. All right, so the last thing we want to do is we just want to filter the table down to the columns that we want to use and in the order that we want to use them. So we will come here and we can just say df equals df, and then in double brackets, so hit the brackets twice. That's saying you're making a list. So you can come up here, I'll add one more, and if you say df.columns, you can see what the actual columns are. So the easiest way to actually do this is just copy everything that's right here, and we'll replace the inside bracket, okay? Then we can do a little bit of formatting. Oops, don't delete that like I just did. Okay. So this is what it looks like right now. So these are all of the different columns that we have. We want to order them in how we want to display them. So for example, last 5 we're not going to use, so we can delete that one. Attendance, team top score, goalkeeper, notes, we can also get rid of. But let's move our badge column. We're going to move that up right after rank, right there, and add a comma after that. If we run that, now we can look at df.columns again. And we only have those columns that we are going to display on our table. Now that we've done all of our data cleansing, what we are going to do is we are going to start setting up some of the different colors and different visual aspects of our table, and then we will go on to actually creating the table from our data. I like to use, it's this website called Coolors, and this basically just helps you create color palettes to get hex codes. So you need hex codes to be able to create the different colors. So I usually just click on this start the generator, click let's go through the tutorial if you want, I don't care. And then you can just hit the space bar and it will give you a bunch of different colors. Sorry if that just gave anybody a seizure. This way you can get the hex codes that you need to be able to insert colors and get different colors, okay? So let's go back to our Jupyter notebook and we're just gonna start creating variables for our colors. So for background color, we can do BG color. This is our background color. I usually just like to do a simple white background. So the hex code for a simple white background is just 6 capital Fs, okay? So you do the pound sign and then 6 capital Fs. And then text color, so we can do text color. I usually just keep it simple with black. That looks the best. And that is just 6 zeros. That is the hex code. And then row colors, I mean, you can do whatever you want. I make a dictionary right here, so I would just recommend doing this. Create a dictionary, and then just create variables called top 4, top 6, relegation, even, and odd. Okay, so I am actually just going to copy this from my other little document here. So these are just colors that I have chosen by using this coolers right here. And I've just basically selected colors that I think look good. So we can come and just take this one, for example, and you can come here, click here, and just replace it. And so this is kind of like a light green color. It says it's tea green, right? So this is just a couple of like red, green, yellow colors that are a little bit softer and not as hard as just like a green, yellow, and red. If you do want to study color theory, I don't actually know a whole ton about color theory. I just usually use these palettes and just select colors that I think look good together. The last thing we want to do is just set some default colors and fonts for our table. We just use pyplot. We say plt.rcparams, like that. And then in the bracket, it will say text.color equals, and we just want to set it equal to our text color, so our black. And then the last thing is choosing our font family, but we'll do plt.rcparams, and then in here we'll do font.family is equal to monospace. I mean, monospace is the one I'm choosing. I think I like applying just monospace. It means every character has the exact same width, and so it just looks good because everything's standardized. So you can run those, and that is essentially just setting up our base variables of how the table is going to look and just some table attributes. So now this is where the Plottable package comes in, and it comes in with creating these things called column definitions. So we'll come back here and we'll look at the code of the documentation, and they have these column definitions, which essentially allows you to specify different attributes of columns, and then you can apply that to your table. Okay, so I usually, especially where I don't have a lot of columns, I will just create a column definition for each column. You could string them together using some sort of for loop and just say, okay, apply the same thing here, here, and here. I like to have a little bit more customization and a little bit more flexibility with each column. Okay, so I'll show you how you can do 3 things with the columns. So I'll show you how you can load images, how you can add color, and how you can add columns to different groups. And this is beyond just kind of the standard things that you'll need in every column definition. We're going to create a list of column definitions. We'll say call defs equals and then a list. And then we're just going to create our first one. So we'll say column definition right there, and in parentheses. And then the first thing we need in each one is the name. So the name is just our column name. So if we come back here, I'll add this back here so it'll be a little bit easier to see. df.columns. We're just going to start going down this list and creating a column definition for each one. So name equals rank, so RK. And then we can use text props as well. So text properties. We'll say text props equals, and this is where you can add like your alignment, you can add your weight, you can add color, different fonts, right? So text props, and we're just going to say HA, so horizontal alignment, and then center. And then you can also add your width, so we say width equals 0.5, and that's all we're going to do for the rank. Okay, so width is the width of your column, how wide you want it to be. So let's go to the next one. We'll say column definition. You can just copy and paste this. It probably makes it a lot easier. But we'll say name equals, so what's the next one? Badge. So we'll say badge. And so here we're also going to apply some text properties. So we'll say text props equals, and then we're going to just take this. We'll copy it because we're just going to do the same thing. HA center. So we want HA to be center because we want our horizontal alignment to be in the center. We also want our vertical alignment, so we say VA center. And what we want to do with our badges is we want to hide the column name. So we just want the badges to have that column and not have any sort of like, oh, this is the badge, right? We don't want to actually show the column name. So we can say in here, we can say color, and then we can set it equal to our background color. So we say BG_color, just like that. And then let's also add a width. So we'll say width equals 0.5. And then this is where we tell it that we want it to actually load images in this column. So we'll say plot_fn. So the plot function equals image. This is where we imported the image function. So we are going to just tell it in the plot_fn attribute of column definition that we want it to load an image. So now let's just keep moving down the list. So squad. I'm just going to copy this top one up here and change it to squad. And then here we have horizontal alignment. We actually want to do left on this one. And then here's where we can add like a weight. So we're going to say bold. And then since the names of the squads are a little bit bigger, we'll say 1.75 on the width. This is where it'll get a little bit tedious. So I'll show you kind of how you can do it. Then I'll copy the code over for like the really similar columns. With the next one, we want to look at matches played. Okay. And this is how you can add groups to the table. So if we come back here and look at this, see how it has the different groups? We can start grouping these columns together. So come here, we'll create a column definition, and we are going to say name equals, so this is going to be our matches played, and then group, you can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it matches played, just like that. And then text properties, I'm just going to do center, HA center. And then last thing, width equals 0.5. So it looks like we have 3 more. So win, draw, loss. So we can honestly just copy these and just paste it 3 times. And then just change the name to whatever the column is. So win, draw, loss, just like that. Okay, so that is how we can start grouping columns together, and we can, have different columns that we are going to use. And so that is how you can start grouping columns together, and this allows you to visually show, this is part of a group. These things are all the same, and it'll add that little label on top. And honestly, with the next columns, we're just going to start doing the same thing. We're just going to change the group. So I'm just going to paste this a bunch of times again. I don't actually know how many that was, but let's just start plugging these in. So goals for, right there. And let's change the group name, and we'll just call it goals, like that. And then let's go to the next one. So the next column is goals against. So we'll just plug it in there, add it to the same group. So goals, and then come up here, goal difference, and then add it to goals. Okay, and then the last 2 were points and points per match played. Okay, so let's just change these last ones really quick, and we'll change it to PTS, I believe is what it was. Yeah, PTS, and then change the group to points, and then the last one is going to be PTS/MP, so points per matches played, and then just change that group to points. Sorry, that was kind of a long, monotonous thing, but that's just kind of what I like to do. I like to create a column definition, like I had said, for each column, which allows us more flexibility and more customization. So we can delete this one right here for now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create the column definitions for our expected goals. So if we come down here, we can say name equals, and we're just going to do XG, and group equals, we'll do expected goals. And then here we're going to add some text properties, and we're going to get a little bit fancy with these text properties. So we'll say text props, like we've done, and we'll do HA of center, color like this. So color, we just want to set it equal to our text color. And then as well, we want to do weight of bold. And then we're going to add another one that we haven't used before called B-Box. So B-Box is going to allow us to adjust the border of each cell in our column. So we'll say B-Box. And then in a dictionary, we will say box style, and then circle. So this will allow you to create kind of the circles like this. So these circles, if you didn't want these circles, you could just leave it and not add this B-Box, and it would make them like this one right here. So B-Box circle, and then we're going to add padding. So we'll say pad of 0.35. So now what we want to do is we want to apply a color map to our column, right? So we're just going to be using Matplotlib standard color maps to do this. And this is the one we're going to use, this PIYG, which is just a diverging color map. You can use any of these ones. Usually diverging on these tables looks really good. Let's go back and we're going to apply this color map now. So if it is CMap equals normed underscore CMap, and that's the function we imported earlier, and this needs basically the values that we're going to use the CMap on. So we'll say df_xg, so it's just the name of the column that you're using. And then we're going to say CMap equals matplotlib.cm.piyg. So that's the one that we're using. And then you can say num stds. So you can change this and it will change the colors just based on the standard deviation allowance. So I usually just set it at 2. And then let's just copy this and we will apply it to the remaining columns because they're basically going to be the same thing. And just as a heads up, I actually got rid of, there was an expected goals difference per 90. I got rid of that column while I made an error, and so I had to go back and fix it. So that column is no longer in our table. As you can see, our columns right here no longer have XGD per 90. Okay, so let's just fix these column names. So XGA and then XGD. So the last thing we need to think about is these color maps and how we want to portray the colors. So if we use the color map right here as it is, what this is going to do is it is going to go in this sort of format down here, right here. So the PIYGs, where the lower values are going to be red and the higher values are going to be green, which in the case of expected goals is good, right? Higher values are green and the lower values are red right here. But if you look at the defense, it's reversed on this image. So it is the lower values are green and the higher values are red. And that is because the team's defensive rating usually want a lower defensive rating in this context. Or in our case, when we're looking at the goals against, usually you want to have a lower value than a higher value. So what we can do is we can actually just, on the expected goals against, if you just add an underscore R onto the end of this PIYG, it will reverse the value kind of mapping. So lower values are good, higher values are bad. Let's go ahead and run that. Hey guys, I just wanted to say thanks for the recent support on the workshop I released, Get Free Sports Data by Building Your Own Web Scraping Pipeline. If you're watching this video, I'm going to just release kind of a secret code if you've made it this far. And that code is just going to be tables. That will allow you to get $10 off of the workshop price, giving you the pre-launch price. I'll leave a link in the description and you can kind of see what it's all about. So now that we have everything set up, that is a very long setup, unfortunately, but it is the best way to allow you for customization and allow you to kind of really get into the nitty gritty of each column. So now let's actually create the table. So we'll say fig, ax equals plt.subplots, and then fig size equals 20 in parentheses 20 by 22. That's just a good ratio for a matplotlib to be able to create a table. And then we'll say fig.set face color as your background color, so BG color, and then ax.set face color, BG color, like that. Okay, so run that. So that's what it returns. That's basically our piece of paper that we're going to be drawing on. And so now we'll say table equals a table with a capital T. And then this just needs a couple of things. So we're going to pass in our df. So this is our data. So just say df. And we'll say column definitions equals col defs. So these are all the columns that we just created, all the column definitions that we just created. So we're going to pass that in. And then we're going to say index col, so our index column. So if you want to assign a column to the index, like on this one where rank is the index, essentially, the indexing number, we'll just say index col equals rank. And then row dividers. So if you want to have row dividers, like how it has here, where it has the little dotted lines in between each row, we can do that. So we'll say row dividers equals true. And then we can add a couple of customization to that row divider. So we will say row divider underscore KW equals, and then you can mess around with this as much as you want. I'm just going to use the one that I've been using. So it's line width of 1, and then line style, if we do 0 and then 1 comma 5, like that. So line style in parentheses 0 1 comma 5. And then let's move on to our footer divider. So if we say footer underscore divider equals true. So this is if you wanted to add like this was made by me or where the data came from, right? And then text props, we're going to apply everything has a font size. So font size of 14. And then the last thing that we need to add is we just need to say AX equals AX. So it knows that it's plotting it on this axis that we've created. And then the last thing is so that we can make sure that all the text looks good with the different colors that we're going to add in, so it's not like making it hard to read. We're going to say dot at the end of the table, say dot auto set underscore font colors. And then for in parentheses, just say call names equals, and then the columns that you've applied color maps to. So XG, XGA, the capital A, and then last one, XGD, like that. So if we run that, we get an error. Okay, so if you run this, you're going to get an error because I misspelled something if you copied my code, word or letter for letter. And you come back up to this column definition. This should be weight, not waith, right? Waith is not a word. So WHGHT, like that. So now if we rerun this, we get another error because I am a dummy and I left a comma in all of these. So all these need to have a quote, not a comma. You probably were watching that and thinking, wow, McKay, I can't believe you made it all that way without noticing that. You quite literally are the dumbest human on earth. So make sure all of your text props have colons instead of commas in them. Otherwise, you will get an error. Then you need to come up and you need to see that I actually missed a comma there on that one. So, yeah. I've probably spent like 30 minutes debugging this code just because of the errors I've been making. Live coding is definitely very hard. So, let's rerun this. Last thing I want to point out is I accidentally left the normed CMAP XG. So I left it the same on all of these, so just make sure these are up to date as well. XGA and XGD right here. So hopefully you're able to figure out those errors. The code I will have in the GitHub will be the correct code. Okay, it will not be any of this erroneous code. So be sure to reference that as you are doing this, and you'll be able to make sure you have the correct code. So now let's run this at the end. And there we go. Voila. We now have the table, a really nice looking table. There is a couple of things we can do to improve this, such as making sure goals right here is capitalize, same as points and expected goals. So we come back here, change that. So now that we have this table, we can save it. There is a way that you can set face color for rows specifically. So for example, if we wanted to set the rows, I personally don't like the way this looks. If we want to say, like the top 4 Champions League, they are going to have specific values while the relegation people have like red, right? That is why we got these colors up here. So top 4, top 6. So what we could do is we can just write a for loop and say for IDX in, so 0, 1, 2, and 3. So our first 3 rows, and then we'll say table.rows, and then IDX.set_face color. And then we just want to call those row colors. So we'll say row _colors, and then our top 4. So we could run that. And I mean, that actually doesn't look too bad because the colors kind of go well. So if we want to do the next ones, we could do for IDX in, then the next one, so IDX in, 4, 5, then, oops, I didn't mean to run it. We'll say table.rows, IDX.set_face color, and then row _colors, same thing, and then we'll just do top 6 this time. So we run that. Rows color, it's row colors. So that is yellow. I mean, looks okay. I don't really love the yellow, the orange, or the green and the yellow. And then you could do the same thing. Sorry, this is just kind of me just going. So then last thing, we'll do 17, 18, and 19. Those are the last 3 rows, and then we'll say relegation, like that. So now we can see the bottom 3 all have red, which means they are going down. So now last thing is we can just save it. So if we say fig.savefig, like this. So the first argument is just going to be where you want to output it. I usually just say user/my name / and then just save it to the desktop. And then we'll save this as La Liga table.png. And then say face color equals ax.get_face color. And then we'll say DPI, so dots per inch. 200 is usually a good one. And then I like to say bbox inches equals tight, like that. So saves, and you can now go open it up on your computer. Boom. So now we have our La Liga table. And that is it for this video. I do recommend just going and looking through the documentation. There are a couple of more things that you can do with these tables that I haven't brought up in this tutorial, but the Plottable package is honestly a really cool package to use and a really cool package to be able to create these good looking tables. I mean, compared to what FBref had, this is very much more appealing, and it's very much easier to look at than just, that Excel spreadsheet, or if we're just looking at like this data frame up here. Like looking at this, I could never just sit and look at this. It would take forever. But looking at this, I can kind of get quick glance. Okay, Barcelona highest expected goals, but they don't have the best expected goals against. Or somebody might say, okay, Girona are in first right now. They have a really high expected goals, but they do have a higher expected goals against than the next 6 people. So we'll have to see how long they're able to maintain that first place lead, especially with Real Madrid and Atletico, who are right on their tails. The nice thing about these tables is that you're able to create a lot of cool stuff. So if you need information about how to scrape the web to get more data to create cool things, be sure to watch this video right here somewhere.